question differently. I agree with everything that Scott said. I think we're in a... Oh, you need my... You seriously can't hear me? That's the first time in my whole life that somebody said they couldn't hear me. That's very fine. Anyway, I agree with everything Scott said. I want to flip the question a different way. I think that the Jewish community has historically made an assumption. The community's assumption was, we can tell you how to be Jewish and what your community is going to look like. And we've done that for generations. My grandparents created the community. My parents lived in the community. What we know now is, and because most of you are very young, is that you don't want us to tell you what it means to be in a community and what your community should look like. So I actually think we need more from you than you need from us. We need you, and what's great about Birthright is it's a trigger, it's a catalyst. It's not the end of the journey. In some cases it's the starting place, in some cases it's the middle part of it. But we need you to help create the Jewish community that you are going to live in so that we can build a Jewish community, the one that Scott talked about. So the activism actually I think we need is you to activate you and your friends to help us reimagine a Jewish life and a Jewish community that you want to be a part of, rather than let us dictate or let you walk into what already exists. Right? I mean, how many of you have walked into a Jewish organization, whether it's a Hillel on campus, whether it's a synagogue, and walked out and said, that isn't the experience I want? How many have had that experience? Right? So what I want, me too, by the way, every day I walk into a Jewish organization, I feel that way. We want you to help us reimagine the Jewish community so that you can participate.
So to follow up on that, this question is for Morley, and anyone else can add to it. So to follow up on that, Morley, what are some ways that you think both Birthright Next, but in general, communities, federations, and other organizations can do that, can get young adults involved in the conversation in order to create the next generation of leadership and the future of the community?
Probably everybody at this table is going to agree with what everybody before them have said. That's true for me as well, with the things that Scott and Jay just said. The underlying ethos of Birthright Israel Next is that our job is to provide resources for those who've experienced Birthright and their peers to themselves, yourselves, explore and establish the Jewish living and learning opportunities that you seek so you can more deeply own the Jewish community that you're going to be fashioning. Each of us in our time has the opportunity and the responsibility, I would say, to grab hold of our Jewish world and fashion it in the image of our group and our peers. And that's what's happening right now. So the kinds of work that we do are focused primarily on both programmatic and partnership opportunities that offer resources and then get out of the way, so that those who take advantage of the resources and the partners that we work with can work closely with the people that are in their home communities in the way that makes sense.
So the last three comments really point to, really allowing this generation of Israel program attorneys to have a voice, to have their own voice. Let's just move a little bit onto the campus, and then I'm going to ask Sharon to talk about how Hillel is doing that. One of the things that I think is interesting is that although we have so many people who have come back from Birthright and Mossad programs, there's still a distancing from Israel that we hear about from research, and which is interesting, even though so many people have been on these programs. So how is Hillel thinking about the campus? How do we utilize program returnees to energize their fellow students?
Hillel actually is looking precisely at those students. The studies for an Oppenheim talks about 70% who are at risk in the Jewish community. Among them, the at risk of distancing themselves from Israel. That's 70% as opposed to, I think, 22% who are the core advocates. And our job is to reach those, as many of those 70%ers as we can. So what we're trying to do is train a wider lens on the Israel narrative, bring a more holistic and honest approach to the Israel picture, respecting students for their intellectual curiosity. That's the stage of life that they're in. That's what we hope to encourage, find ways to have Israel resonate for them, find what interests them. I think in light of what everybody else was saying here, we agree on the campus what we do. We have a personalized engagement strategy that takes the student, especially we're uniquely poised to do this because we see the fluidity of the educational experience in Birthright. We start at the Birthright interview, which is more of a conversation to find out what's interesting, what resonates to these students. We have 2 Hillel staffers on a bus, and we come back and we begin the follow-through. Well, we don't begin it, we continue the follow-through. As you said, it's not just a separate thing, it's part of a continuum. So we have, and there are numerous examples of how we do that. We, in Binghamton, there was how we cultivate leadership from this as well, and communal involvement from this. So in Binghamton, there was a student who, Alex, who was a journalist. She was marginally involved in Israel. We talked to her before in her Birthright interview, connected her to Birthright. She was psyched on the trip. She came back. She organized a trip to go back to Israel, an alternative break with 30 students in JFNA. She came back and she dropped her other duties to become a Hillel leader, and she created something that would speak to you. She created with her bus mates something called iNext, which is to continue the Birthright experience for her bus mates and to continue to incorporate communal involvement in their lives. One last example I'll give before turning over the mic is our first big initiative of the Center for Israel Engagement at Hillel was we try to specifically approach these 70%. Students who have questions, students who are confused, students who run away at the first sight of somebody telling them that when they come home from a Birthright trip they have to support Israel. And not only do they have to come out and flag wave about Israel, but we're going to tell you what to think when you support Israel. Our first big initiative was something called Talk Israel. We put up 20 Hillels across North America, put up tents, big white 40 by 40 tents for a full day, squarely front and center in the middle of their campus to talk about Israel. The impetus for this was political. It was the Palestinian bid for statehood at the UN and the turbulence surrounding the Arab Spring. But the conversations went on beyond the politics to touch on the texture, the rich texture of Israel. Talked about the Rainbow Coalition came into the tent to talk about gay rights. They talked about the social protests in Israel. The agendas were created by the campus specifically to let the students take ownership of these programs, as the other panelists here spoke about. And are putting a personal face onto the Israel narrative. We have 50 Israel fellows on 50 campuses across America. We have Masa interns we work with. There are 45 on 36 campuses together with our Israel fellows. They're these little mini Israel teams we have. They helped propel these tents forward. We had 4,000 students come through our tents that day. 55% of them were not Hillel regulars. It was a way for students to feel like, to see an assertive pro-Israel presence on their campus, but in the softer tones that speak to the students today. And I think that this is the model that Hillel wants to create, one of civil dialogue. We had facilitators encouraging dialogue. Palestinians and opposition groups came inside the tents. At Columbia, something that had never happened before. They came into the tent out for 3 hours to talk. This is a different model that will encourage, hopefully, more of those 70%ers and empower them to continue their connection with Israel.
Thank you. I'm going to ask 2 more questions, and then I'm going to turn it over to you guys. So everyone should be thinking of their critical, important questions that they want to ask to get the conversation going. The next thing I want to ask, and this is for anybody who wants to answer it, is about leadership. And we had a Shabbaton before the GA where we had about 50, 60 students here. And at one point I asked a group of students, how many of you are interested in potentially working in the Jewish community? And I was amazed, more than half of them. Maybe they're self-selecting to be at the GA, but maybe, fine. But still, when we look at both Birthright and Masa Alumni, many people come back from these trips really energized and engaged and passionate about Israel and about the Jewish community. And so my question is, how can we think about creating pipelines toward leadership for these people? And if anyone has ideas of how we might want to be thinking about that.
You want to jump in?
No,
I think, and I'm going to push back on the word leadership in this context for a minute, and I hope that will generate some discussion when we open this up further. I wonder whether in this context leadership is the right word. I think it is a lot more about ownership, owning your experience, owning the opportunity to be involved in something much larger. And if that's true, and that's my view, then I think our job, those of us who are trying to help this process, our job is to make sure that there are opportunities for deep living and learning experiences that the people who participate in can grow from and find their own pathways. I don't think there's any question that Birthright ignites in many cases, and I know many of you here have been on the trip. You'll have your own stories to share, perhaps. It ignites something that's unusual and in some cases never experienced before, and that's a wonderful thing, but it's one ignition. And to move along one's own growth path requires lots of different experiences and lots of different opportunities. And I think that while there is a lot of both anecdotal and analytic evidence that Birthright is itself sort of serving as a pipeline, I think the latest numbers that I've seen are that upwards of 25% of the young Jewish communal professionals have been through Birthright. That's happening naturally and organically, as it should.
Yeah, on the leadership piece, a whole generation who were effectively too old to qualify for Birthright. So what we've done, in a sense, is modeled the Birthright experience we have 30-something groups, 40-something groups, 50-something groups, where we take a year program and culminating or in the middle with an Israel experience, because that group bonding that you get in Birthright, it works at every age. The piece of I think a really good point was the ownership piece. We found, particularly in our younger audience, that they need to own it. It has to be there. We created a whole new program in Detroit, Community Next, which was built around attracting, retaining, engaging young people. Here's a budget. There's not going to be any committees, no oversight. Go at it. And build the model and try some stuff. And some worked fabulously, some didn't. But on the whole, we're moving the needle in that space. And what we've done, one of the keys to it was, it has to be customer-centric, so you need enough people who can help act as connectors or concierges, for lack of a better word. For example, with our Masad program, we got about 30 young people a year from our community on Masad. So we decided to hire somebody as part of their portfolio to spend 2/3 of the year in Israel and 1/3 of the year in Detroit, really getting to know these people. Because it's like Facebook. If they hit the like button, now you've got some. And whether it's for advocacy or, people will like Israel for different reasons. Some people it's the startup nation piece of Israel. Some it's the creative energy of Israel, the diversity of Israel. Some it is the sort of political advocacy, and they're going to take the lead on that. But, in some ways, it doesn't matter where they wind up, in what space. It's just engaged now at a different level, and now we've got people that we can build a community on. So really, it's been, I'm taking a group next week of, the average age is probably 50. We're going to Israel and Ethiopia as a leadership program, and just back 2 weeks ago. So it's so core, because it works, and we know that. I'm repeating myself, so I'm going to hand the microphone.
Jay, do you want to say anything? Do you want to?
I'm wondering if there's the same amount of drinking and partying on the 50-person mission as there is on Birthright.
It just starts much earlier. It's an early bird.
I wanted to add something. Hillel in itself is a pipeline. We start at the big. We have them on campus. We start with the interviews. We're on the buses with them. We come back with them. At Johns Hopkins, they sit with them and they have an individualized follow-through programs with them. We're able to find ways that Israel resonates for students in new and different ways, not just advocacy, but advocacy as well, in which case we need to elevate that conversation. We have programs to help to begin to do that. But wouldn't it be wonderful if the community and the federations and the JCCs that take buses, if they had staff members on those buses too? Part of the unique opportunity that Hillel has is that it can be with those students to watch their powerful experience, bring them back and work with them together on how they can continue their Jewish journey, how to plug in Israel to that Jewish journey in a more, and not just leadership. I agree. I don't think everybody's going to be a leader, but everybody should be able to explore Israel on their own terms.
Okay, my last question, and then we have a mic in the middle for people to start asking questions and turn this into more of a conversation with everybody here. My last question is really just if everybody or anybody wants to share any things that they think have really worked. We've heard already a few examples of some ideas, but things that have really worked, or things that they think really work, or on the other side, things that maybe really haven't worked, or major obstacles people want to share. And then I'm going to open it up to everybody.
This is turning into a little bit of a commercial, which I'm not so excited about. I mean, I just want to ask a question before I start that I hope you answer. I'm curious, given the age range in this room, why you're in this room. So when we get to that place, I would really love to know why you're here and what you wanted to walk out with. Because in Los Angeles, we have people on the buses. We're working closely with Birthright Next. We're trying to create opportunities for people who go on Birthright to engage in the community, and we're trying to help them, as I said, create their own Jewish journeys and create their own communities. And we could talk about details of what we're doing in Los Angeles. Los Angeles, I think, is on some level on the cutting edge of some of this stuff, and on some level we're behind. I know Detroit is doing good work, and Boston is, and I know Hillel's doing good work. But to me, I'll be honestly, I'm much more interested. I did not expect to see this room for this session. So I'm really far more interested in why people are here than how great what the work we're doing in Los Angeles is. And it's great, by the way.
Ditto.
Okay, so that's an invitation for people to start the dialogue. There's a microphone right here in the middle. Please. Good, great. And just please tell us, just please say who you are and where you're from before your question.
Am I what you look for? Okay. Am I the type of person you were looking for? Being 56, I'm Nancy Barnett from Milwaukee Jewish Federation. And I'm here because
by the way, you look like you're 26.
So good.
only my hair is I was here because I was really wanting to, I'm the head of Israel and overseas. So I'm looking for strategies to connect my kids in the community who've gone to Israel. I want to turn them into advocates, activists, and I was looking for strategies.
Are we responding to that statement?
Why don't we take a few questions, and is that okay with you?
Yeah.
Let's take a few questions at a time, and then we'll start talking.
Hi, my name is Scott Raymond. I'm a senior at the University of Maryland, moving to Los Angeles in January after I graduate. And so this is so important to me. Why am I here? Because I'm a nifty EIE graduate. Went semester abroad. I've been on JFNA, alternative spring break. Israel is so important to me. You talk about, we had the Jewish Futures session before this, and I heard that there were, there were a few people that were under the age of 25. We are the future. I have gone to Israel. This is important to me. You spoke about the follow-through. I think that's so important rather than follow-up. We talked about, like, the birthright is a catalyst. Well, if it's catalyst, then it's got to be the catalyst to something bigger. It can't be just it can't stand on its own. There's got to be follow-through on it. What are we doing to follow through on? Let's bring the Israeli soldiers that walk along with these kids back. Bring them to America. Let's, I have so many friends who go on birthright, and that's it. They go on birthright, they come back home. They don't go into Hill. They don't do any of that stuff. So how can we motivate these birthright kids? We have so many kids wanting to go to birthright. On birthright, you're having to tell kids, sorry, you can't go. Well, maybe let's make some stipulations. If you go on the birthright, the next year, the next 2 years, you got to do something. You have to organize it. Let's show up in New York. Let's show up in D.C. Let's show up in Los Angeles. Let's get all the birthright alums together. Let's do something. Let's make it happen. I mean, I think that's so important that we're just kind of forgetting. But I think y'all are great, and I think this is important. I think birthright is terrific.
Come sit in my chair.
I want to be a part of that group. I'm going to have a 40-hour-a-week job. I don't have millions of dollars in the bank where I can be a Jewish professional. But on the weekends, in the evening, I'd like to do something. Tell me how I can help you. I want to be there as an Israeli.
Wait a second. Wait, the letter J. Sanderson. Well, where are you? Turn around. The letter J. Sanderson at jewishla.org.
I'm going to come speak to you.
I want you to email me when you get to LA. I'll put you to work right away.
Hi, my name is Alana. I go to the University of Arizona, and we participated in Talk Israel. I find that a lot of the campus speakers are focusing on the very volatile situations. We have the exact opposite of a problem. We're just very apathetic, and it's very hard to get people to come out. Our Talk Israel tent was wonderful, but we found that it was the exact same kids that come into Hillel, coming and hanging out. We did have wonderful speakers, and I learned a lot, but it was more of a hangout kind of thing. Honestly, I'm at the point where I'm willing to stand up in the middle of the mall and say something ridiculous like all Arabs should be bombed or something just to get people to talk. And obviously, not going to do that. Yeah, not going to, but it's a very frustrating situation where we want people to come out, we want people to come out and speak and get a discussion going, but it's just not happening. So I'm looking for advice on how to become a more active community. We don't even have like a hate or apartheid week, and so it's just something that I'd like. Like I said, I'd like to do something ridiculous just to get people to, something to get more people involved.
Hi, thank you guys for coming to speak. First of all, my name is David Berlin. I'm with the Do the Right Thing program. I'm a Maryland Hillel student. I'm Masa alumni from year course, Yom Judea, Miami Federation, all those shenanigans. And I was the one that talked about the only person under 25 in the federations of the future of the federation course, and I was shocked to see that more college students weren't involved. So my question to you guys is, how do you get these advocates and activists involved in the future of the federation? Because we are the future, and we are the people who are going to change the federation. So how do we get other people involved, and how do we inspire these people to be a facilitator in the change?
Hi, I'm Sam Silverleaf. I'm here representing the Israel Government Fellows Program from Mossad. And there are 5 of you up on the panel here. There's the old saying, 2 Jews, 3 opinions. My other sense is that for every 2 Jews, there are 3, 4, 5 organizations. There are a lot of organizations here representing a lot of different initiatives. What I'm concerned with, we've heard some people who are students who have come up here and said how they're engaged and they're involved. What I'm not concerned with is the leadership. I'm not concerned with the leadership, the future of the leadership of these organizations. What I'm concerned with is the rest. We go on Birthright. I'm here, but I'm not here because of really the individual efforts of organizations after Birthright. I was not engaged with anybody before Birthright. I went on Birthright, I came back, and no one talked to me. I'm here because of my own initiative, which I find very, very disturbing. I understand that part of the purpose of Birthright was that this is a free trip for you to come and explore and understand, and that we don't want any strings attached. But I have a very, very strong feeling that there are opportunities that are not being taken advantage of. When people come back, they have this unbelievable experience. And then, if you want to take advantage of it, go ahead. And if you don't, I've heard the word opportunity used a lot. I think that there's an issue with there being opportunities presented. Don't present me with an opportunity. Tell me, here is this thing. Come to this thing. Be here. Because what I see is, I see people like this gentleman right here, well-spoken, strong. You can see this is someone who cares. But when people come back, it's not just one person. There are 20 people who come back, 30, 40. They say, I care about Israel. But then what happens to them? They go back to their regular lives. So what I'm concerned with is, what are we doing about getting the regular people, not to be leaders of the Jewish community, but to just be involved in the Jewish community? Exactly. Thank you.
Last one, then we'll see if there's any responses to all of these before we forget the question.
Hi everyone, I'm Natalie Silverleaf. I'm here with Do the Right Thing, AZM. That was my brother Sam. He's awesome. So I first just really would like to thank you and emphasize how important these programs are. I am a Birthright alumni. I went, as you heard my brother say, we had absolutely no connection. Zero, zip, zilch. We said, oh, free trip, let's go. It had the most profound impact on me I couldn't have even ever imagined it possible. I went back 3 times as a madricha. I most recently finished doing the Masa program, Career Israel, and in a week I'm making Aliyah. So I know I'm what really shook me, so I'm going to keep it together, holding it together, what really solidified the experience for me was I understood when I was there in Israel, and that foundation continued to grow as I went back, that I am not separate from Israel, I am not separate from Israelis. As Jewish people, we are mishpacha worldwide, and I feel like if more young people understood that connection, how can we continue to develop that connection? How can we continue to bridge the gap between Israel, Israelis, that culture? Oh, I'm not Israeli. We're all Jewish. And I think more people will not be as afraid of saying, I'm pro-Israel. I'm Zionist. This is like this crazy, scary word. If they understood that we are all in unison together on this mission, and it's not that scary if you understand the foundation of it all, that we're all together. How can we do that?
This is awesome. This is really what we wanted. Do you guys want to respond to any of this? Or keep
Yeah, sure. I recommend that Morley start. She took notes, but I'll follow Morley.
One of you, obviously, this panel, I think this panel, although you guys will draw your own conclusions, but I think each of us have interesting things to say. In a sense, we're a little bit, we represent a little bit of the old look of how to approach a problem, because we're approaching it organizationally.
I'm going like this.
Organizationally. You've got Masa sitting here, you've got a federation sitting here, you've got Hillel, you've got Next, another federation. And I think that organizational approach is something that underlies many of the comments that you're talking about, because what we have is a people issue. And we have to find a way to engage ourselves collectively in the project of the Jewish people. That's what we're here about. So number one thing, you guys have to help us. This really, a lot of these solutions, we can help provide organizational resources. That's our job. That's what we're trying to do here. But we're trying to do that and get out of the way. And let you help carve out some of these paths. And that's a really important message for you to understand. If you don't find anybody knocking at your door, when you come back, shout out, and somebody will respond. If you think that you're not being heard, talk louder. It actually, unfortunately, isn't always easy to create new pathways and new ways of thinking about our work and the work of the Jewish people. But that's something that if we're all committed to doing, and we feel it's our responsibility, I think it will happen. And let me give it to Jay.
Okay, so I'm standing up again. It's not easy to sit down for so long periods of time, right? So I don't agree with you, actually, which is good, my friend. In Los Angeles, and this is not it could be an ad to move to Los Angeles. We're reimagining the Federation to be able to accommodate the worlds that you live in and the world you want to live in. So I don't view us as an organization. I view us as our number one priority is to figure this out. You're the future of the Jewish community. And by the way, the second woman that spoke and talked about, the people in the gray area that aren't here, that didn't come to the GA, that would never come to the GA, that wouldn't set foot in a Jewish organization, which is, frankly, one of the great successes of Birthright, is to reaching those individuals. I care about them as much, if not more, than I care about you. To give them a voice, to let them get engaged in a wholly different way. So in Los Angeles, which is a very unique Jewish community, we are really, really trying to rethink this and trying to step away from our organizational psyche to open the doors. And again, we need your help to do that. I think the truth of the matter is that we have failed communally to address not just young people who went to Birthright, young people in general, right? The Jewish community suffers from two diseases. One is the disease of right now, right? There's an emergency right now. So we have to focus on the emergency right now. We can't look to the future. And the second thing is, we are an old model run by, anybody here on a federation board? At every GA, I piss off a few people, so I apologize in advance. We're an old model run by old people, right? There are very few federations that have anybody on boards under the age of 40, never mind 25. We've got to figure this out. And in Los Angeles, we're committed to do that. So the good news is we recognize the concerns that you all have. I believe we take responsibility for them. And for the first time, I believe, ever, we're listening and we're ready to make change. And I think that's the case in many communities around the country. I just happen to think that some communities, like Los Angeles, we are so committed to this that we're willing to make mistakes. We're willing to take risks to get you guys engaged.
I wanted to address the University of Arizona student, because I had a conversation with Michelle, your director, the other day, who was telling me about the apathy on your campus. I think that the model to change the paradigm of conversation on campus through civil discourse, through opening up the avenues for connecting with Israel, Hillel is the connector. That if you don't belong to a Hillel and you come back from a birthright trip, come to Hillel anyway. We have a list of opportunities that we can actually plug you into. We can shepherd you through. But I just wanted, on a personal note, to the student who was talking about the rest of us. And leadership is important, it's crucial, but I do passionately believe that it's the rest of you who are going to continue the Israel-diaspora relationship, who are going to continue the tie with Israel. I've been living in Israel all my adult life. I just got back to America a few months ago. For me, as an Israeli, it is you people who, not only those of you who are at the GA, like Jay says, but the other people as well. Those people who go on Birthright and come home and have nothing, no one meeting them, no one greeting them, no one shepherding them through. The people who are scared of the advocates who come and tell them what they have to think. Those are the people we want to address. We are beginning to do that. It's baby steps now to change the climate on campus so that it isn't just advocacy. Advocacy is crucial. It's important. It's just not the only thing. I had a student talk to me after her Berkeley tent. she was a very left-wing student who was grateful for her tent, but saw that the community was still really divisive. There were right-wing Jewish students who protested outside the tent, rather than come in and actually talk, which was what the point of this was. And I said to her, please, just have patience. Just what you said. We need to work with you. I am new to this. I work for an institution. The institution's been around a very long time. The Center for Israel Engagement has not been around that long. Training a new, wider lens on the campus is a new and different way of looking at it on the campus with the young people. And together, I think that we can change the way people can relate, students, young people can relate to Israel.
In some ways, Gay and I both didn't need to be on this panel because we're really coming from a very similar perspective. Both of us came from outside the system and are making big bets in your generation. That's our significant portion of our focus, which has really not been the traditional model in the system. And we're going to have to get a lot more comfortable with risk and failure if we're going to do that, because we're going to try a hell of a lot more things. Where's Natalie?
Yes.
Natalie, something you said really resonated with me, and I'm going to only touch on one tactic, and for the person from Milwaukee, we should offline have a conversation. Some of my people are here who can help with what some of the programs we're doing that work, and I'm sure the others as well. The whole idea, this is global Jewish people, to put it in fancy terms, but mishpacha, I guess is the best term. We do a program, all our birthright trips, all our community birthright trips are staffed by Federation and community professionals and have 8 to 10 Israelis from our partnership region for the entire 10-day experience. Every 2 or 3 trips we gather the group of Israelis. We do a reverse birthright trip where they all come to Detroit for a 5-day mission and stay at the houses of the friends they met. And that experience is equally as powerful on both sides as the original birthright trip. And what it does, and I strongly suggest every federation figure out a way to do something like this, because it builds. One of the Israeli kids who went on the trip said to me, and I go to these wrap-up sessions, I came here Israeli, I'm going home part of the Jewish people. And that, to me, that's a win. And one more thing. If we had this meeting 15 years ago, let's say before birthright, there'd be maybe 20 people in the room at the most. We're winning this. We've made transformational change in the last decade. Now, how to leverage that better and get a higher retention rate and find the right spots and empower, those are all the challenges. But these are good challenges. We're in a position of strength that we weren't in, because there's a hell of a lot more young people who care about being part of the Jewish family, Israel, than there were 10 years ago. So we're in a good place here. So I don't want to be too negative on this.
Let's keep going with some of these great questions and points, and we'll try to get through all of them, I think.
Hello, everyone. My name is Noga Brenner Samia, and I'm from Bina, Center for Jewish Identity and Hebrew Culture in Tel Aviv. So I wanted to throw out a few pieces to 2 different puzzles where I see it here, and just kind of throw it out into the room. So one on the content level is, I haven't heard really come up, is tikkun olam and social activism, social justice, as being a part of this puzzle, in engaging, in keeping up with after Israel programs, and making social activism and social justice work part of what we're talking about, not separate, but rather together. And the other thing, organizationally, that perfectly tags on to what you just were talking about. As a program, we run a program called Tikkun Olam Tel Aviv Yafo in South Tel Aviv and in Yafo, and we're also concerned as program operators. We're also looking at how do we follow up, how do we follow through, and I'm here, and I came to this session to kind of also understand how can we be partners in this dilemma and these questions as program. We're looking at different models, as Avi knows, different models is working with federations and making connections between the partnership region and Tikkun Olam, and the follow-up of going back to the community afterwards. So kind of let's work together, and not only on recruiting and getting folks over to Israel, but also on the follow-up and the follow-through.
Okay. So, my
name's Alex Kadis. I just got back recently from a year in Israel on the Alumni program, and and I absolutely loved it. I had a fantastic time. Coming back, there's been very little follow through with me. I've gotten some emails about some events in New York. I'm not in New York. There's plenty of people who have been on these events that are, or been on these programs that are Massa alumni, that are Birthright alumni, that I'm currently living in Cleveland, Ohio. There's been very little ability, I think, to really connect the people that have been on these programs to other people that have been on them, and just to socialize, to talk about. I mean, for me, the reason why I'm at the GA is I'm looking for a job, and I think that there's what better place to try and talk with people than people that are also involved in the Jewish community that want to try and give back. That's what I'm intimately involved in, something I really want to make a real part of who I am, and continue with that. And I would love to just kind of ask you guys, how are we connecting the different organizations in different cities that are maybe not LA, maybe not New York, that are kind of a little bit more, I guess to use this really word, the periphery, that are, how are we connecting all of these different organizations and all of the Hillels and all the federations, and is there any idea sharing going on? Is there any way to know if an idea fails miserably that another city's not going to try and do the exact same thing? If an idea is succeeding wildly, do other cities know about it? And if there's room for it, if there are some organizations doing experimentation, there's no reason that two different cities have to do the same experiments. One city can say, we're doing this experiment, we're trying this out. Another city can say, and they can say, we've got 10 ideas, maybe another city can try. Is there any communication and idea sharing going on? If there is, how can we be a part of that? Thank you.
Hi, my name is Lonnie Moses. I'm here with Do the Right Thing, and I also work for Alumni, the Labor Zionist Youth Movement. And I, just as a precursor, I've been on the Massa program as a gap year to Israel. About a week and a half ago, I ran a Birthright Next Shabbat dinner, my first one. And I did that because I had been a peer leader on a Birthright trip. And all the things that you're talking about are wonderful, and I think this follow-through is really important. But what I wanted to bring up is the question of why is this all starting at the age of 18? In Happening Drawer, we started doing Zionist education at the age of 7. And I think we do very high-quality Zionist education starting at the age of 7. I ran a 4-day program for 7-year-olds this summer, and we did an entire evening on the Israeli tent protest. And the 7-year-olds were incredibly engaged. And I guess what I'm wondering is are we able to do quality connections to Israel and Israel programming from an earlier age, instead of waiting until people are 18 and then trying to claw back what we've already lost? And I had one more comment, but I forgot it, so.
Great question. Yeah, let's take 2 more, and then see if we can answer them. I want to try to get everybody's voice.
I'm Rachel Traeger. I'm the Director of Alumni for Massa Israel Journey. And I want to say that more than anything, I feel questions from alumni who were previously not engaged in Jewish life, then participated in Birthright, and then did a Massa program, and then returned and are desperate to work in the Jewish world. And for example, even they had no aspirations for that beforehand. For example, I recently profiled a journalism student who was a correspondent for her local paper while she was at Cooper U, and now works as a reporter for another local paper. And after I told her how impressed I was, she asked me if there were any jobs at Massa for her. So clearly there aren't enough jobs for all of these alumni, but my question is, what do we do with all this passion, and how can we answer these alumni?
Hi, I'm Tova Hammett. I'm the director of the Israel Goose Foundation. I live in Jerusalem, but I work around the world dealing with a lot of these issues, engaging the next generation, whatever that means. I don't really like that term, it's kind of insulting for me. Anyways, but engaging young people and younger and, you know, in everyone in between in Jewish philanthropy, in the continuity of Jewish philanthropy, in Israel education, in Israel engagement, and all of these things, and trying to tie together a lot of pieces of what everyone is talking about. So I just want to maybe bring up the very unpopular subject that might be at the crux of this and see what you guys have to say about it, which is money. I know that when it comes down to it, you know, that is one of the big reasons why more programming isn't happening in a lot of these areas, because there needs to be sufficient funding to connect everybody, to create, you know, whatever kind of networks need to be created, or additional programs that need to be run, or follow through and all these things. There needs to be money for those things. And the question is, you know, without putting any pressure, I know that part of the old federation system that we're talking about that you have mentioned is that there is a minimum donation recognition that happens, that needs to happen, you know, $5,000. And somebody who's 21 years old or 22 years old who doesn't have $5,000 to give is not going to get the same credit in the federation system as the 40 and 50-year-olds who then get to have a say in how things happen. And so while it's really sweet to say, yeah, we want young people in there, the question is, young people in there, even if they're not giving $5,000, and even if they're not committing every hour of their day, and are we looking, you know, are the federations and are these other programs looking for ways to solve that problem, to give them the recognition, to give them those positions, and also utilize them in terms of raising the funds for additional programming into the future? Because they can be real resources in terms of that as well.
Just a few comments from people up here, and I want to give everyone a chance to speak. So if people have comments, just to answer that last point, one point about it is that what Scott said earlier, which is that in some ways maybe Scott and Jay didn't need to be here together because they're both taking big bets on this generation. And to some extent the question is, will other federations follow suit along that model? You know, will federations turn the system on its head a little bit and give more of a space for the voice for you guys, for young people? And so in some ways the purpose of having both of them up here is to challenge other people from other communities to think about it, look at these models, and think, are we prepared to do that so that the $5,000 giver is not the bar about whether someone gets involved in a federation. Other comments about any of these, or we want to keep it going?
I mean, I speak quickly.
Yeah.
Anybody that's looking for a job, I'm very interested in. I think there are jobs. I think there are jobs. But you're making Aliyah.
I know. Give me a job in this.
I think that there are jobs. I think you have to look. The person who asked about collaboration between organizations, we have to be honest with you. It's a challenge. It's a Jewish communal challenge that's been with us since I think Moses got the 10 Commandments. We're working on it, and I think that individuals like Morley with Birthright Next is doing a good job of trying to break down some of those barriers. We're working on it, and it's a challenge. But there are jobs, there are volunteer opportunities. I'll tell you what I tell young people all the time. You just have to work harder and push a little harder, because the system won't change unless you help be the person who changes it. You have to be change agents. You have to take some responsibility, because we are talking about, you know, if you were at the plenary yesterday, the LA Federation is 100 years old. We're trying to turn a battleship around in a river, and we're a good federation, right? So there are lots of organizations where people have been in jobs for 20 years and not going anywhere, so you have to push harder on both the lay side and the professional side. But I believe that we're at a moment now, a tipping point in Jewish life, where it isn't just Scott and I, it isn't just federations in Hillel. We're at a tipping point where you can make a difference professionally and volunteer-wise if you push just a little harder than you're pushing now.
Let me just say 2 sentences, taking a page off of Jay's advertorial. Next, as those of you who may have been involved in its first incarnation was focused on programming, now is focusing much more on partnership and making, I think this was Alex who made the point about making the Jewish communities nationally and over time internationally much more transparent. So that the stuff that's going on the ground will be available and transparent to the people who seek knowledge about it. And as well, we see our role as helping to develop the professional opportunities and a little bit of a pipeline into the Jewish community because we have a national reach. So we're moving in both of those directions, and in significant part because of what we've heard from you guys. So it's really, really important. I can't underscore what everybody on this panel has said enough. It is essential that your voice be heard and that you don't take no for an answer.
I wanted to answer two people, the Tikkun Olam and social justice programs. Hillel has a rich tzedek program that does alternative breaks in the tzedek social justice arena. We're trying very adamantly now to weave in Israel into that in a much more powerful way, resonant way. We also have a program we're working on now to bring Tikkun Olam, social justice in Israel programs to Hillel, working with Hillels in Israel and North America. So come and see me and we can hopefully work together on that. In terms of the organizational collaboration and empowering younger people, younger than 18, Hillel is part of something called the Advocacy Pipeline. The Schusterman Foundation created it. We're sitting around the table with a number of advocacy organizations. We bring in a somewhat wider perspective on advocacy as well. It's not just leaders and advocates, it's people seriously committed to Israel. We're working together with the BBYO, as to your question right here, working with high school students to transition them from high school to college. The advocacy pipeline is looking at the transitional stages from high school to college, from college to outside to the adult working world, the older adult working world. And these transitional points, and when somebody comes back from a gap year or from a Masa program, that's another transitional point. So we're working together right now in a program with the BBYO to take high school students together with Hillel students together with Israelis to place that personal face onto the Israel narrative, and even older adults outside the community to work together in a program to pilot it and see how we can fare, because the younger people need to be engaged.
Couple sort of thoughts. A lot of the conversation has been talking about, people questioning the strategy, tactics, all that. In some ways, all of that's overrated because there's a lot of things that work. I think the key, if we're looking at the big picture, we're looking at building a vibrant Jewish future. And the way to do that is all of you, sure, I'd love you to come get involved in the Federation, but if that's not your passion spot, get involved somewhere else. Just do something. Bring your positive energy and your passion to it, and we will move the needle. So it's, a lot of it's just finding that spot. Find your sweet spot. We spend way too much time trying to get better at what we're not naturally good at. Find what you're great at. Connect it to the Jewish community, and run with it. And, somebody, it was a Jay said, just going to have to push a little harder sometimes. But if it's something you love doing, that's so key to this. So, look, hopefully the federation system will get to a point where in every one of your towns, that's a good place for you. I would hope that would happen. If not, in the meantime, go somewhere else and let's just build that Jewish future together.
And let's keep going. I want to make sure everybody has a chance.